Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a reading vlog and it starts right after Summerween. So I have just finished my Summerween vlog. I'm still editing it. I had such a good time and I finished off my last book yesterday on Friday. For the rest of that day I just did what came naturally and I just did nothing. But today I woke up with more energy and I just wanted to keep going with the spooky, creepy Halloween vibes. But I'm also in my fantasy era, so I was kind of looking for books to bring those two topics together. Creepy vibes with high fantasy elements. And I found some good books. Because what better way of keeping the party of Summerween alive than reading about the undead? So over the last week or so I read a bit about like ghosts and ghost stories, but they were all more or less urban fantasy. So for me that's enough real world. I want that epic fantasy world where I can just immerse myself in the world building and the great writing style and the different continents and countries and everybody's at war, but I want it spooky. So I decided to keep reading Bonesmith. If you've seen my Summerween vlog, you know that I started this right in the beginning of July and I actually managed to read over 100 pages of this. So I didn't pick this back up during Summerween, but now I feel ready and I just want to get back into this. And when I woke up this morning, I actually did continue and read about 60 pages more. So now I'm on page 172. It is quite a chunky bit. I think I'm around 40% right now, and it was a perfect moment to stop at chapter 17 because we get a new POV, which was very surprising to me and I'm kind of here for it. But let me quickly talk about the other books that I'm planning to read this weekend and then I'm gonna come back to this one. So I have two physical books here that fit the bill, but before going into these, I have two ebooks that I actually want to prioritize before those, but those are kind of backups in case I'm not really feeling one of the other two. So the first book that I really want to get to this weekend is Cursed Under London by Gabby Hutchinson Crouch, and this is actually an ARC that I got and the book was released earlier this month. This actually works perfect for the Undead prompt, even though in this one we're going back to reality, to the real world. It's urban fantasy, and in this we follow Fang and Lazaire, and they're both kind of undead, but they're not really sure like where they fit in with the supernatural, because they're not really zombies, they're not really ghosts, they're not really vampires. Like, what are they? They kind of have to find out more and hopefully find a way to turn back human. So really excited for that one. And then I also have Year of the Reaper by Makia Lucier, and with this one I tried the first chapter before and I really enjoyed it, and now I'm really happy that I finally have the time to get back to this. And this is actually back in a fantastic world where there was a plague and a lot of people died, and we have a young warrior going back home after all this time and finding things have kind of changed, and he is thrust into murder mystery, I think. So that's another thing that I'm really enjoying at the moment, so I can't wait to find those kind of different genres mixed in this one. So those two I'm hoping to get to. I only have the ebooks for both of them, and if I have the time or if either of the other two books don't really fit the bill for me this weekend, I still have these two. So I have The Book Eaters by Sunji Dean, and this is a bit of a stretch for the undead, but we have a family that normally like lives on eating books and eating the stories and basically taking on the persona of whatever book they're getting. But now this woman has a son that actually needs to eat the minds of people. So that's kind of zombie-ish. And I've read the first chapter of this one as well, and the way that that first chapter ended was, oh my god, creepy as hell. Really looking forward to coming back to this one. And it's a short one as well. And then I still have Vespertine by Margaret Rogerson. Again, a book that I've already started in the past. I once started it and got to page 176 and I don't remember why I put it away and didn't pick it back up. I really enjoyed the author's other books, so I'm really glad that I still have this on my back burner in case I need something good, because this is gonna be a good one. And with this one we have like a nunnery of girls, of women, called Grey Sisters, and they cleanse the bodies of the deceased so that their ghosts don't come back. So I feel like all of those sound amazing if you kind of want the spooky vibe still. And the weather is actually nice enough today to fit the theme of the whole vlog, because it's overcast and it's kind of like it's not as hot anymore. So Summerween was here, is now gone, and now we're basically in fall mood. So I just got back in, got my coffee, and that was kind of like a disappointment for me, because I actually went out in order to get a good cup of coffee in a cafe. I just wanted to sit down for like an hour and just read my book and like make it cozy, and then they were closed, and I was kind of disappointed by that. And then I went and did some grocery shopping, and that's where I got this cup of coffee. Not that I don't like this one, this is from a bakery, but it's just, it doesn't hit the same way, if you know what I mean. But on the way back I stopped at the bookstore where I work at and picked up a book that I pre-ordered, and it finally arrived, and that is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. This is just so cute. This totally doesn't fit the vibe, so this is not gonna get read this weekend. This is just beautiful, and I don't really know too much about it except that it's basically the embodiment of cozy fantasy, so I think I'm gonna be here for it. I heard great reviews of this one, so hopefully this gets read soon. Oh my god, I just realized. Okay, this has to be read very soon, because I just realized there's like a little cat with wings. How cute is that? I never noticed that before. Okay, this is just too cute. Okay, back to the creepy crawlies. So we have Bonesmith, and in this we are on an island in a fantastical world that is different from the mainland in that it has actual magic running through their veins, and it actually shows in the people that they have an affinity towards something like bones or ghosts or iron, like anything that works, like wood. So whenever there's like a bonesmith or an ironsmith or a woodsmith, they have an affinity towards that, and they can manipulate it with magic. Now, a long time ago their magic was way stronger. Now it's kind of drizzled down, and a couple of centuries ago there actually was a group of smiths that could manipulate ghosts, but they have been gone since 200 years or so, and that was actually a good thing, because right at the end of that they started to use the ghosts instead of helping them cross over, so they are now the feared enemy of the past. And since the bonesmiths are kind of related to that whole thing, because they can manipulate skeletons and bones, nobody really trusts them, but they have a very important role to play on this island that is called the Dominions, because right before our main character's birth there was an uprising, there was a war, because one of the other smiths' families, I guess you would say, because it's hereditary. So one of these families, the ironsmiths, they were mining, and they actually stumbled upon creations of the ghost smiths and released them to the world, and these were very like deadly ghosts. So all that time ago the dead were rising, and everybody was scrambling to protect the rest of the realm, and so they built a wall that is now keeping out these undead, but also the land of the iron smiths. So there is a divide on the Dominion, but that has been 20 years ago, and now we are following Ren, who is in the beginning of the novel taking part in a test where she is supposed to show that she can be a Valkyr, who is a warrior of the Bonesmith, and together with a partner they go out and they can actually sever the spirit from the bone, and in that way make the ghost pass on to the next stage of their death, I guess. So it's a very high honor, and she wants to be the best of the best. She was a novice until now, and she just wants to prove herself. Her grandmother is actually one of the highest bonesmiths, but isn't really that favorable to Ren, and her father is still grieving after losing brother during the war all that time ago. So she has a lot to prove, especially since she never listens to anyone. She doesn't follow any rules. So she's a troublemaker, and now she just wants to prove that she actually can do what she's told and become part of all of it. But right from the get-go, there is sabotage. Another novice is actually manipulating the whole test, and in the end, Ren doesn't succeed. She is banished by her own grandmother, and her dad doesn't really do anything. And instead of becoming one of their best warriors, she is banished to the south, to the wall that is now the only thing holding back like the undead. Think of like the Great Wall in Game of Thrones with the White Walkers on the other side, but the same with Game of Thrones. In this, they haven't really seen any fighting or any real ghosts over the last maybe 7 years, so nothing really is happening down there, and so being banished there and having to prove yourself when there's nothing to do to prove yourself is a very harsh thing to do to her. And so, like with Game of Thrones, everybody's kind of like, you can go there, you can guard us, but whatever, we're gonna forget about you eventually. And she's been there for about a month, and she's kind of losing hope that she can actually prove anything. But then there's an announcement that actually the third prince of the realm is coming to visit. He's getting to know the whole country and everything, and so he just wants to see what the wall's all about. And they go beyond the wall, and Ren is with him, and they get attacked. Not spoil anything, that's actually in the synopsis. So they get attacked, and by trying to save Leo, the prince, Ren actually gets separated from their group, and the only companion who is now with her in these deadly lands beyond the wall is an enemy. Someone who was out to kidnap Leo, the prince, but his companions, the other kidnappers, they turned on him, they tried to kill him, so now he's kind of in the same boat as Ren, as having to survive. Both of them want to get their hands on the prince for different reasons, but right now they're kind of like, we don't want the kidnappers to have him, so let's work together, get him, and then we can cross that bridge of who actually gets him in the end when we get to it. So they're kind of reluctant partners in this, and I just love the sarcasm and the banter between them already. So as it turns out, this new companion of Ren is one of the ironsmiths, and she is surprised because there weren't supposed to be any of them left. All of them were supposed to have died during the war. Now she's suspicious if there's like an enemy waiting to come for the Dominion, for the rest of the Dominion. So she has a lot of thoughts on the matter, but right now she just wants to get to the prince because he was the first person really in her life to be nice to her, to befriend her, and she really wants that friendship back. But also at the same time, she's in her mind going through everything that everybody would say about her, how she would be like the hero and everybody would just give her everything that she wanted out of life. So that's where we're at, and right now chapter 17 we switch from the POV of Ren to Leo, the prince, which I didn't think was gonna happen. Leo so far has been like the typical bored prince who parties a lot and is kind of like, I want fun and kind of want to make trouble, because if I don't make trouble, or if I don't come off as this pleasant, great prince, everybody's gonna forget about me because he's the spare. So he's bored. But now I guess he's not anymore because he's kidnapped. So we'll see what's gonna happen to him, and I can't wait to get back to this. I do have the audiobook for this, which is very good. I can highly recommend. And with the exception of the urban fantasy, I have an audiobook for all the rest of the books. So that should help me get through these quicker. Thankfully, since my surgery in the beginning of the month, my mind has been less foggy over the last couple of days, so I'm really getting into this this reading habit again, so I can't wait. So I got my coffee, and I actually have some baked goods that I did yesterday, and they're so good, if I say so myself. They're really yummy, they're very pillowy, so did a good job with that one. So I'll get back to you with an update later. says right away that the day started wrong for Leo because he had the less than desirable knowledge that he was going to be kidnapped. So he knew.
That's probably why you feel with how the main characters act around each other. Yeah, the plot wasn't that convoluted, but the ghost is so creepy. I agree. And also going back to, yeah, it's more like probably why you with how the main characters acted. Considering this got 56 volts, and then Death in the Clouds got 52 volts. So maybe the next new Christy Crime Book Clubs could be 5 little dicks and Death in the Clouds.
So I just finished Bonesmith and I'm giving it 4.5 stars. I had such a good time with this one. It was really fun and I'm so happy that I only have to wait 1 month until the sequel, and I think the finale comes out, so can't wait for that. I think I updated you guys at the perfect moment to do that, because after that was really action-packed. There were a lot of big reveals and a lot of like fighting scenes, but also like very romantic scenes between the characters, and so I don't want to go into any more details on that because all of that would be a spoiler. But I really enjoyed it, like I said, and the reason why it's not a full 5-star is because I feel there was like it was kind of lacking a bit of originality, because right in the synopsis it says Gideon the Ninth meets the Game of Thrones White Walkers, and that's kind of how I was feeling the whole time. Gideon the Ninth, okay, I see the resemblance because of the whole bone aspect and that there are like different houses like in this one as well, but other than that I don't really see too much of a resemblance between like the plot or anything else. I really do enjoy the magic system in this one. It's very intricate, like you have the different kinds of magic that is used, but at the same time it is very like narrow. You can only use that one thing and you kind of have to see how you can manipulate your surroundings in order to get to that one thing that you can manipulate. So I really enjoyed like watching them fighting that way, or even just like contemplating how someone might get away when they're supposed to be like tied up, but there's maybe something around them or near them that they could use. So I really enjoyed that part. But the comparison to Game of Thrones, I think it doesn't end with the White Walkers and the whole wall aspect that I mentioned before, because I felt, and I'm not going to go into too much depth because I feel like that would be a bit spoilery, so don't worry about that, but I do feel like at a lot of points in the story I was like, okay, there is the reference to Game of Thrones. Again, something that seems similar to or is kind of the same as. With the character development right from the get-go, I noticed something and I was like, okay, this might be kind of like, and it turned out to be true. Not that it took away any of my enjoyment of reading this book, because it is very well done. I flew through it and like I said, I really liked the book as a whole, and I think it ended in the right way, and I can't wait for the sequel. It is marketed as a YA, and I think a lot of people are questioning that, but I do think YA is very fitting for this. I do see how maybe the fighting scenes and the manipulation with the bodies and the bones, it could be seen as something very gruesome. And at some points it is, because it takes it right to the edge where it's kind of zombies walking around and being manipulated, and some of the powers are very like gruesome in some parts, but the rest of it I feel is very YA. Just like the relationship development between these main protagonists. There are like a lot of scenes where they are thrown together literally sometimes, in order to get them closer, in order to get this familiarity and to get these moments of, ooh, we just touched, or ooh, we're like very close to each other, and what does that mean, and like the feelings that develop. So it was kind of like a very obvious way of pushing these characters together. Also, like, yes, I like the magic system, but it is very much what it says on the page. There aren't too many rules, there isn't too much backstory to it, except for the whole what happened back then during the riots and during the uprising. But there isn't too much like explanation about how this magic came to be and stuff. Also with the plot, I do think in the beginning you're kind of thrown into this whole world and you kind of have to see where everything fits, but throughout the first couple of chapters you do get enough information in accordance with like the map that you can kind of see what's going on. And after that the plot is very straightforward. Of course you have your big reveals that weren't all that surprising but are still fun to read about, and you have a lot of things going on in the plot, but it's not as convoluted as some other like adult books would be. There aren't too many like red herrings or too many plot points coming together. It is very straightforward. I think that is what makes this book YA in a good YA, in my opinion. Like I said before, we do have chapters written in Leo's POV as well as Julian's, the ironsmith. I don't think I mentioned his name before. So we have both of their POVs as well, but they're only like here and there, and I'm not really sure we needed that. I don't know about the plot in the next book. In this one, it seems a bit unnecessary. I get why the author would want us to be with that character for a certain scene or something, but that was the only reason why we had that POV. And I'm not really sure that we needed to have that plot point, because we could have gotten that from Ren's perspective via her overhearing it or getting the information later. I don't feel like there was too much that we got from that. And even though I enjoyed being in the head of those characters because it was really fun and it was different from seeing everything from Ren's perspective, so it was good to have that kind of insight, I don't feel necessarily that we needed to have that insight. I always like having like the romance, especially that we don't always know what the other person is thinking until they open up to the main character. And in this we kind of got told very early on like what is happening on both sides of the budding relationship. But other than that, I really had a lovely time with this. I'm glad that I finally got around to reading it. It's been on my shelves for a year now. It's the special edition even, and I really enjoyed having like this beautiful artwork to look at. And like I said, I can't wait for the sequel. So it is pretty late. It's already after midnight here, and I had a lot of fun watching Gavin's Patreon book club live show. I didn't read the book, and now I don't think I'm gonna after the discussion. And simultaneously I had the sprints on from the Tarot Readathon that is happening, that I'm taking part in, and that was a lot of fun as well. And now I'm gonna see if, because I actually didn't eat anything except for like a bit of baked goods. I didn't really eat dinner. Shame on me. That's not good. So I might make a fast dinner, get some food in me. And I think the next book that I'm going to start with is Cursed Under London by Gabby Hutchinson Crouch. And the reason that I'm going for this one instead of Year of the Reaper is because I feel like Year of the Reaper and Bonesmith have a very similar tone, and I want to have like a clear cut between those two books. So one day down, one book down, I'm really happy. I didn't really do much else. I didn't edit, which is something that I really wanted to do. Now I have to do all the rest tomorrow because I do want to get that vlog up like for Summerween. I've wanted it up yesterday and today, so that didn't happen. So I do really want to get to uploading it tomorrow at the latest. So it's still kind of like the week of Summerween, and I'm gonna stop rambling now. I'm gonna make food, then I'm gonna continue reading. Okay, let's go.
Which again isn't too much of a problem. However, the plugs are down there. There's plugs behind there, So I could have also again put my reading chair there.
Hi, good morning. So it's the next day, and instead of reading, I used the time during dinner last night, my late dinner, which was actually like a midnight snack, to actually watch some YouTube. So that was fun. And I did actually, after that, start the next book. Yes, I went to bed very, very early in the day. I then woke up at 8:30 and then went back to sleep around like 9:30 and then I slept, and now it's 2 o'clock. But now I'm ready to go. And I continued reading Cursed Under London already today, so I'm now at 30%. And I'm having a really good time with it. It's so fun to read. So this is basically an alternate history of our world, and it's set in 1599 in London, but in this world, like around 2000 years ago, a Chinese emperor did a bad thing and brought the first undead into the world. And ever since then, all the supernatural beings that we know, zombies, werewolves, vampires, ghouls, fae, they all exist, and everybody in the world of course knows about this, so it's not really a big secret or anything. Instead, the world is divided into the upper world, which is in this case Upper London, and the deep side, which is where all the magical and supernatural beings live and reside. It's very dangerous for humans to go there. It's pretty much deadly, so no one really goes there, but the magical beings can come up to the surface, but there are different laws. So society really has incorporated these new beings into their society, but of course there is a lot of, let's call it, racism towards these beings, and you can already see it on the page. And it's interesting because it coincides with just basic racism. So our two protagonists are both foreign to Britain, and both of them have already heard so many slurs and so many comments about where they're from, and that's kind of mirrored with something that happened to them recently. Both of them have died. Both of them were mugged and left for dead, and instead of dying, well, they did die, but they didn't stay dead. They came back different. Before they were human, and now the Tsar, the Frenchman, he actually got wings. So everybody assumes that he's a vampire, but he isn't. He just has the wings and is magical and can't seem to die, but he doesn't have like the urge to drink blood, or doesn't have like the teeth and everything. And then we have Fang. He died, he came back, and it turned out that he got fake glamour that he can use. But instead of the typical fake glamour where everything becomes more beautiful and alluring to like get people to love him, he can only make disgusting things. So he can make it rain poop or he can make something seem dangerous so that people who are mugging them become afraid and run away. So that's kind of the only thing that his glamour does, which is kind of horrible. I would not want that power, but that's kind of it. And both of them don't really know what happened or why they were turned, and because they don't fit any of the typical supernatural beings category, again, they kind of stand out and they always have to explain. So that's kind of mirrored in that aspect. So in the beginning, we get to know both of these characters when they themselves think about being turned. And for Lazar, it was a month ago, and we just witnessed that it happened to Fang, and a little very cute dragon, which is kind of like the runt of the litter. She is very small. In my mind, it's always kind of like a little, maybe that's because of my sister, but because they always say that she has her little legs that she needs to like walk on and run away with, it reminds me of like a corgi, of the way they have like the little stumpy legs and like a long body, but also kind of like The Land Before Time. The dinosaurs in that one just thrown together, I feel like that's how I see it, but just with wings, like a little dragon, kind of weird looking, kind of cute, kind of adorable. And she finds both of them and brings them together, and is now staying with them and helping them. And now they're both kind of trying to figure out like what happened, who's behind it, because one, they kind of want the curse to go away for different reasons. Like Lazar is an actor, he's like very flamboyant, he just wants to become a human again. Fang, on the other hand, is hoping that if he lifts the curse, then he can actually die, which is something that he really wants. Oh, sorry, my hair is kind of all over the place. Let's just put this somewhere. Not sure if I'm happy with that, but fine. So they want to break the curse, but also they are afraid that this is some kind of new power that makes the undead or the supernatural, and they don't want that in the wrong hands. That's kind of where I'm at. They have help from an apothecary, which is a friend of Fang's. Her name is Noelle, and she's also trying to help them with finding out what's happening. And now they have finally found a clue, and they're on their way there to stake out this place in hopes of finding a new clue. So it is basically like a mystery that needs to be solved. And so far I'm really happy. I love the writing style, I love the humor behind it. It has a very like silly tone to it, and you kind of have different POVs going into it, and so you have this very broody character Fang, but also this very like amusing character in Lazar. And I love their interactions, and I just love the situational humor that's happening in this book. The only thing that kind of annoyed me for a bit was that we get told the story of how they died and how they came back over and over again. So we first hear about it from their point of view when they're just thinking about what happened, and then they meet Amber and they tell her, then they meet each other and tell each other, then they meet Nell and she gets told like what happened to Lazar again, and then they go out to find new clues and those people will get told the same thing again. And it's not only just like there and then we told them what happened, it's always with more words, so it's kind of the words are on the page. And then we told them how we were mugged and how we got the wings and blah blah blah. And again, every time it's like, no, I'm not a vampire, look at my teeth. Like every time, look at my teeth, look at my teeth, look at my teeth. We get it, he's not a vampire. So that was kind of repetitive, and I was so glad that now we have a new clue that they can focus on something else. But other than that, I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really happy that this is so different from Bonesmith, because that's kind of like a palate cleanser, so that if I actually manage to finish this, I can then move on to Year of the Reaper, because then again I think that brings me back to this fantastical world and element that I got from Bonesmith. But right now I'm having a blast with this one. So no big plans today. The weather is actually really quite good again, so I might use this to go out and get a decent cup of coffee somewhere and sit just somewhere that is not this couch, which is what happened yesterday. I have a cafe in mind because the one that's quite near me, it's closed, like I said yesterday. So I'm gonna have to drive a little bit, but that's fine. I do a lot for a good cup of coffee. You might have noticed. It's now 9 o'clock. I am on sprints with Gavin. They're doing true crime and wine night. I'm not really into that. It's always too dark for me. And with a few exceptions, that's always too dark for me. So I'm editing actually my Summerween vlog. I'm just tuning into the chatty bits in between. But yeah, it's been a couple of hours now since I came home, and I still have a few hours to go with this edit, I think. In the beginning, my computer was kind of acting up, so I had to restart it and everything. I was so lucky that I didn't lose any footage or anything, but now yeah, slowly but surely I'm getting there. But that also means that I'm not really reading at the moment. I read when I was out for my coffee, and I was also listening to an audiobook on the way there and back from there. So I actually listened to the audiobook of Year of the Reaper, and I'm really enjoying that one as well. I had previously started that one, but I went back and started with the prologue and just listened to that again, and I'm really glad that I did. I got all of the information that I need for this book. I'm not going to go into detail here. I'm only at chapter like 2 or 3 right now, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm already loving the character dynamics in this one and the implications of the plague and everything, so really glad to come back to that. But yeah, it is 9 o'clock now, and I think I'm gonna extend this vlog until tomorrow because I'm not sure that I'm gonna get anything else read, and I don't want to leave you in a lurch, and I do want to continue with the books, so that's what I'm gonna do later tonight, hopefully, and also then tomorrow. And that's fine because I'm recuperating at home. I'm on sick leave. I don't really have anywhere to go. So I'm just glad that all of the books that I'm reading are just a hit right now, so I can't wait to talk to you about it more. But now I'm editing, so I will see you guys later. Weirdo. Hi guys. Good news and bad news. Good news, I actually managed to finish a book. So I will update you guys later on that, because the bad news is that I thought after I finished the book, I was like, ooh, I'm just gonna quickly go and edit some more of my Summerween vlog. I did some more like last night before going to bed. I was really happy with it. And then I did maybe 5 minutes of work, and then my laptop froze and I lost some of, well, I didn't actually lose some of the footage, but I lost my last saved copy. So I'm so glad that I made a copy before that, because if I didn't, and I was trying to open the file and it was corrupted and it wasn't opening, so I would have lost everything. And I don't know if my mind could have handled that. But thankfully, silver lining, I had saved one before, but it was an earlier copy, so I hadn't saved for a very long time. So now I'm just doing all the work that I've done to a certain point, and then I still have the rest of the editing to do. So this is haunted. I don't know, this Summerween vlog is haunted, but yeah. That's kind of why I'm very frustrated. But at the moment, knock on wood, it's actually going fine. It's going smoothly. Yeah, I think I do need to invest in a new laptop at some point, but I don't have the money for it, so we'll work with what we got. But I did want to quickly update you guys on the book that I finished, and that is of course Cursed Under London, and I'm gonna give it a 3.75. I think the strong point of this book are its characters and just the way that it's the writing style portrays the different quirks and the different characters, and I really enjoyed all of them. Really, it's a very found family story, and you are kind of thrown into this new London that doesn't really feel like an alternate London per se. So if you want like 1600 London feeling, you're not gonna get that too much with this one. It very much feels like a fantastical world, especially since we are keeping to a very like dark part of London, and then we go into the deep side, which is basically the underground and the magical community in there. So you don't really get too much of like London society. If you're looking for that, that's not really the vibe here. I also feel like the writing style fits more to like a cozy fantasy, more so than the typical historical fantasy. I do think it's funny that the author references like playwrights and poets and authors and other known people from that time period, so that's kind of a funny thing to look out for. There's like Shakespeare's in there, so a lot of like British authors that weren't on my radar, but when I looked it up I was like, okay, so it makes sense for them to be there. Aside from our main characters, we also have a POV of a cop, basically, of London trying to find them, because that cop really believes them to be the evil ones and that they need to be stopped. I wasn't really feeling that POV. I don't feel like we needed it. When I got to the end, I kind of felt like that maybe this was only in there to facilitate that there is going to be a new book and that we have like a bigger plot coming in the next book, because in this one we would have gotten the feeling of them being chased and the police being after them without having that POV. Especially since the POV, like the cops, are geese and swans and like basically very big birds, which was kind of a weird image. I mean, the whole thing is weird, like there's a weird quality to this whole story, but that just took it a bit too far for my taste. So I really wasn't really feeling those chapters. But the quest itself, like them trying to figure out what's going on or who's behind these new kinds of undead, that was really fun. I really liked the whole explanation in the end. I really enjoyed just following along and finding out more about these magical beings. So the whole mystery aspect I really enjoyed and I thought was really well done. What I would have liked to be a bit toned down maybe is their interaction in accordance to their relationship. So we very much from the beginning know that both the main characters, Fang and Lazar, like each other, that they find each other attractive. So we have established that right from the get-go. But it keeps coming up when their relationship is growing, and it's pretty much Lazar being, I like you, you're attractive, you're hot, and Fang being, we're gonna have sex, that's inevitable, but let's get it over with because I'm so broken, there is no future for us. And so that's kind of the friction between these two, and all the other characters pile on with observations about these two, and it's just too much, too often, and there isn't really a development in that, because we know also from like a very early point on that there can be more emotion when some things are resolved from the past. So having them keep reminding us that yes, they find each other attractive and both of them are very pretty, and it's a bit too much. I would have liked a bit of a subtler way of going about it. The same goes for the racism in this, because like I said before, there is a parallel between them being different from all the other supernatural beings and them being different as in they're foreign to this country, and everybody always reminding them that they're different. And again, it's a bit too on the nose and too in your face with how often everybody keeps reminding them that they're different. So again, that would have been maybe a bit better received from my end by being a bit toned down. Because at a certain point there was this kind of repetitiveness with these scenes and also with the quest that I was kind of losing interest, and so I was really glad that I was reading this for a vlog, because I'm not sure if I would have always kept picking it back up if not for doing this vlog. But I'm glad that I finished it. I was in the end a bit surprised that the ending was cut very short, because there seems, like I said, it seems to be like a spin-off or a second book in a series. I don't know. On Goodreads it seemed like it's a standalone, which was what I was kind of expecting. I felt like it was wrapped up okay in the end, so I didn't really need this kind of hint at a sequel or a spin-off. So I don't know, I haven't really seen any talk about it since this has only just been released, so I don't know if maybe next year we get a book 2 in this. So really happy that I finished this book, and like I said, it's been a while because I've been editing, so I haven't really picked Year of the Reaper back up. I am planning on continuing with it, but right now I just want that Summerween vlog to finally get a move on. I'm really mad at it. I'm really disappointed, and that's kind of why I hate editing. I love filming, I love vlogging, I hate editing with a passion. So I'm gonna go back to that, and I'm guessing at some point, and then I'm gonna have to pause for a second, and that's when I'm gonna go back and read some more. It's the next day. Surprise, surprise, I'm still not finished. So I continued with Year of the Reaper, but I don't think I've ever actually talked about what this is about. So in this we have two countries who were at war with each other for like over 50 years, and then finally they decided that there needed to be peace. So they were determined to marry the princess of one country with the king of another, and so bring peace to both of their countries. Now, in that moment when that happened, a plague hit both countries. A lot of people died, and we are now a year later. The countries are at peace when our main character Cass finally returns home after 3 years of being imprisoned, of being poor, of trying to get back home. He's the younger brother of a lord, and when he arrives back home, he just notices right away how different it is from when he left. There is peace now, and the princess and the king are now married. So the king and queen now had a baby, and they're all residing in his ancestral home. The day he arrives at home, it's the naming day of the little prince, and there's actually an assassination attempt on the little baby. I mean, come on. And he's the one who saves the day and is reunited with his brother, and he is now thrown into this whole political spiel of him having all these emotions and anger issues towards the country that imprisoned him and made him suffer for so long, but having to come to terms with acknowledging that that enemy is now an ally. And that is such an interesting point to get into this story. Like, you don't have the enemies, you already have the allies, and now he's thrown in there and has to navigate that political landscape. So I really like this introduction of following him through the land and figuring out like what happened with the plague, seeing the loss of life. That was very emotional, and also on top of that, he himself was a victim of the plague, but he survived, which seems to be like he is one of the only ones that did. And ever since then he can see ghosts, which is, in a world where a lot of people died, not such a great thing. While we see him getting back into his old life and reuniting with people that he knew back then, we also see the perils of his being imprisoned for so long and being tortured and everything. So we see his aversion to touch and that he doesn't like crowds and everything. So again, something that I really thought was well done, and him as a character is so intriguing. So I really am happy with how the story went in that perspective. But, and sadly there's a but right now. I'm right now at 36% and I still don't really know what the actual plot of the book is. I thought at this point we would have more to go on, but really we've just seen him arrive back home, making like furtive attempts of getting like the relationships that he had back in order, and meeting the half-sister of the king and starting a relationship with her. She's like a historian and she's working on a book, and he's now helping her. And other than that, we don't really have like an overall plot with this. And ever since he arrived in the keep, we also don't really have him interacting with ghosts all too much. My problem also is with the world building and the writing style, and for me it all feels a bit staged. So I feel like the plot and the world building ends right when the door closes. So we have this bubble around our main character, but everything else kind of comes to a standstill the moment that our attention is somewhere else. I don't feel like he is just one of many humans in this world. I don't feel like we are like thrown into this big intricate world where we only see a little sliver of. I just feel like the focus was on this scene and this scene only, and everything else is kind of blurry. So I'm kind of sad about that. I really had hoped for more. And also I had to abandon the audiobook, and I'm kind of glad that I did. At first it didn't really feel too bad, but after a time I noticed that the main characters felt very young the way that he narrated it, especially Lena, the historian, and also some other characters felt very like squawkish, like he did something with his voice when narrating them that just made them feel very silly. So I abandoned that, and I'm glad that I'm only reading it physically now. Cass and Lena are now investigating what happened on the voyage of the princess when she came to become the new queen, because she started with a lot of people and that kind of dwindled down because everybody was getting sick, dying, and then she had to abandon them in order to reach the keep. And one of the people who was with her on that voyage orphanage was actually Cass's brother, and both of them are very like tight-lipped with how everything turned out and how only 4 people arrived at the keep in the end. So I think maybe there is something there that might become more of a plot, so we'll see. So I'm gonna continue reading and I will update you guys, hopefully with some news on what is actually happening in this book. Yeah, I know. Sorry if there's a shadow on my face. It's a bit later and it's cloudy and rainy, so anyway, I thought I would do a little update and close out this vlog. It's been a couple of days since I actually finished all the books for this vlog, but my sister was here. I wasn't really feeling up to updating you guys and filming, so it is what it is. So let's talk about Year of the Reaper. This one is so hard to talk about for me. Yeah, I know, right? She agrees. So this one is a hard one to rate and a hard one to talk about because, like I said in my last update, the feeling for like most of the story was kind of meh. I was kind of bored, nothing really was happening. The main reason for reading this for this vlog was because there seemed to be like a plague thing going on and him seeing ghosts, and for like a long time that didn't really matter. Like there were some moments of him like interacting with ghosts, but it wasn't really the biggest thing ever. And so I was kind of not really feeling it, and I told you before that it seemed a bit like it was staged, like the world building ended right where the scene ended, so I wasn't really feeling immersed in all of this, and that didn't really change. It still felt very like constructed, like there were constructed moments where I really enjoyed like watching the characters interact, and there were like these highlights of them being amazing and having this great talk, but it felt constructed in a way that you kind of felt like the author knew all of these kind of moments were perfect to highlight these amazing people that she wrote about. So she put all of them one after the other and just connected the dots basically, and so that we have all the kind of like a highlight reel, if you want to go there. And so it didn't really feel natural for them to adapt and change in that way. And talking about like a highlight reel, that is kind of the way I ended up looking at this book as a whole, because I actually enjoyed the ending, like the last maybe 25% of it I thought was really well done. The whole plot was untangled in the end very well, and I really enjoyed the end of it. But it does, and that's kind of how I'm looking at it now, I'm seeing it as a movie, because in a movie you don't have 600 pages in order to get like the characters across. You know, the kind of movies where you're like, oh, I love this romance, but they only basically had like 5 scenes together and they didn't have any talk that went into depth, but you kind of root for them anyway because of the great like montage or like the great soundtrack, so you're kind of rooting for the couple. And that's kind of how this went. So you have this highlight reel, you have these moments that are supposed to tell you this is going into depth, this is kind of like this big, great, epic thing, and not just like the romance, but the whole plot of it. So you didn't have like the biggest, best like conversations or like banter or going into depth and getting to know the other person, but you still felt like you were rooting for them in a way. But for a reader who likes to have like a reason behind like character development and like what's going on, I still felt like it's only scratched the surface of the potential of the book. I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I took away from this book, is that it had so much potential and so much, yeah, intrigue for me, just from the main character, because he was so interesting. Just the way that he was introduced, the way that he felt about getting back into his old life and what it meant, and how he felt in crowds, like the impact it had on him, that he wasn't the same person that left 3 years ago, and that not everybody could see that. So I really felt like I wanted more of him and just being in his head. So that's kind of why I enjoyed the book and why I kept coming back to it. And it also made sense, like, for me having like enjoyed the plague aspect of it. I thought it was really well done and authentic, like the feelings behind it, the way that the scenes were set and emotionally portrayed, of people losing people and having basically everyone knowing someone who had died or someone who had gotten sick, and the way that these towns reacted upon hearing that there's going to be a plague. And it makes sense for all of that to feel authentic because it was written during the pandemic. So even though it wasn't COVID, it was the plague, and even though it was a very different like setting, it felt very authentic, like the fear, like the emotional basis of it. So that's what I thought was really well done. Plot wise, I think it just tried to do too much. Just like with the movie, you kind of have to put a lot of scenes one after the other. There has to be like a lot of action, a lot of things happening at the same time. And with other books, like with other like epic fantasy, that works for some reason, and you don't feel like you only get like the highlight reel. With this one, it kind of fell flat because you had this person stumble upon his home, where that should have been like the main point, but then you have this whole murder mystery wrapped around a voyage when he had just arrived back home, and now they're all going back to the capital. And then you have like this crazy doctor thing that's happening at one point, and then you have court politics, and you have family issues. And even though it could have worked as a story, it felt a bit like trying too much with too little like time actually on the page working it out. So I only really got into it, like I said, 26% before the end. Like 75% in, I was like, ooh, now this is getting good. Now we're getting to the good part, right? Another thing that kind of felt a bit off about it was that the gender roles were kind of very traditional in a sense. So in that aspect, it tried to be like a historical novel, like with fantasy aspects to it. For example, the main love interest, she was not like the other girls at court. She just did what she wanted. She rode a horse and she was very bookish and she put on pants. But at the next moment, she is reduced basically to the damsel in distress, or the damsel who's like waving a handkerchief in a sense after him when he rides off to be the hero, or that she has to be saved. And some of it just felt like a little bit wrong. Like it didn't really work for the kind of story and for the kind of writing style, because the writing style felt very modern-ish. So it would have worked better for the gender roles to not be as constricted as they were back then. So this kind of took me out of the story at some points. And because of all the things that were kind of thrown together, I know it's like it's only a little thing, but for me that was kind of like always in the back of my mind. Like I said before, the author tried too many things, so there couldn't be like a departure of the timeline. So I always thought it was weird that this man was lost to everybody for 3 years. Everybody thought he was dead. He comes back, and the same time, like the moment that he arrived, broken from the war that he is still fighting in his mind, there is an assassination attempt at the new prince, and nobody questions that he just came back, that he might have a hand in it, that he might want revenge on that royal family, that he might have ulterior motives into coming back, that maybe he was lying about his whole backstory about being captured and being imprisoned for all these years. And that's kind of where I see that it was kind of constructed, because in another book we would have had someone question it, and him having to explain and be like, I'm loyal, this is who I am, this is what really happened to me. But with this one, he was welcomed with open arms by everyone. No one questioned it. Everybody was just trusting him with like even like the prince's life. And so it felt a bit too easy for this character to just roll back into his old life and pick up his old life where he basically left off. I know it's not a big thing, but that's kind of an example of what I mean when I say that I felt like it was constructed and it didn't feel authentic, and that maybe like the plot or like the world building ended where the scene ends off. So All that is to say, I ended up giving it 3.25 stars. I thought about giving it 3 stars, but just like the end and how it all came together, and that I did in the end enjoy his character and just the way of portraying this plague infested land, put it over the edge. But well, not quite to the height of 3.5, but since I am doing like 3.75, I was like, why not do 3.25? So that ended up being the conclusion to this vlog. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know down in the comments if you know any books that have like these undead theme. I do want to get back to it at some point, but I feel like with this vlog it felt like I did Summerween 2.0 very well, and I'm glad that I did it. But now I can move on from the undead and pick up something else, and I have, since this is now a few days later. So all that's left is to thank you for watching this video, and I will see you soon with another vlog or another video, and I hope to see you there as well. Until then, I hope you have all the great reads. Bye!